Hey guys, so today I am on the floor again because I realize this is a much more comfortable position for me. I just like it down here a lot more. Like, I'm sitting cross-legged, it's a lot more chill. The camera's real low, I don't have to like look up at it like this, like it's just way better. But today, as the title insinuates, or as the title tells you, I'm gonna be talking about how I got hired at Chanel at Nordstrom. Now, just a disclaimer, I am not saying that if you follow these steps, you are going to get hired by Chanel. I am just here to share with you my experience to possibly ease your mind, because I remember when I was looking up, like interview questions just to prepare myself for an interview at Chanel, like I could not find a single one. Like there was no help. And I just wanted to help you be a little more prepared if you are interested in working at the Chanel counter at a Nordstrom. I can't speak for a Chanel counter at Macy's or just a Chanel boutique. I do not work there. I work at a Chanel counter at Nordstrom. So my interview basically comprised of half Nordstrom and half Chanel. My interview comprised of half Nordstrom and half Chanel because you do work at Nordstrom, but you do work for Chanel. So they want to make sure that you are compatible for both. With that being said, let's just hop in. I can't think of any more disclaimers to tell you. I basically not making any promises. I'm just here to share my experience because I had a rather lengthy process, and I talked to the other girls at the counter, and their process was equally as lengthy just because they want to make sure that they're hiring basically the best of the best. Another thing, this is not my uniform. They gave me this brooch just as gratis, and I wear it because I don't have a uniform yet. They have not issued me one. I've been working for them for like 2 months. They haven't issued me one just because I think that they're going to be redoing uniforms, but as far as I know, I just wear all black and I wear biz cash. So my interview process consisted of 4 weeks, or about a month, and I asked the other girls and they said that it lasted pretty much the same length. When you apply for a position at Nordstrom, you apply online, and you basically go on Nordstrom.com, you go on the bottom where it says careers, and you just fill out all your stuff. Like, it's quite a lengthy process just for the application. You just fill out your information, social security, basically anything that a standard job application consists of, you're going to be filling that out. And then you fill out the radius in which you want to be working at. So I filled it in for about 25 miles. Thankfully, I got a location that was relatively close to my home. And then you check off certain positions that you're interested in. So if you want to be working in fragrance, if you want to be working in beauty, if you want to do shoes, or if you want to do apparel, you check those off. I wasn't so interested in men's or anything, so I didn't check off men's, and I didn't check off like janitorial or HR or customer service. Like, I was mainly interested in interviewing for anything beauty related, or even women's shoes or women's apparel. Anything for that. Once you fill all that out, what Nordstrom does is that they will email you every time there's a job opening in the areas that you selected. Basically, if there is a job opening within the radius that you checked off and within the department that you checked off, you will receive an email. Okay, so after you receive the email, whether you're interested in the job or not, you just click whether you're interested or not. So if you're interested, you click on the link, you just submit your application. That's already filled out. They have it saved in the system. You just go ahead and submit your application, and then a couple days later, they will either email you back and say that they found a candidate that is better fitting, or they'll say that they feel like you're a pretty good suited candidate and that they would like to schedule you for a phone interview. So I got a email response back saying that they thought I was good fit for Mac Being On Call. And that they would like to schedule a phone interview with me. So in that email, they also attach a link that you will click on if you're interested in scheduling a phone interview. When you click on that link, it's going to take you to a page, and there's going to be like several slots of phone interviews that you can choose from. You just click whatever time and date is best suited for you. The phone interview lasts about 15 minutes, if anything. It's nothing very long. Basically, general questions like, have you ever been in a tough situation? Just very small questions. What did you do when you were in a difficult situation? Explain the situation. What did you do? They give you a couple of scenario questions, and these are just basically weeder questions to weed out who they feel will go on to the in-person interview. So after the phone interview, I believe they asked me why I was interested in working at Nordstrom. And honestly, on the phone interview, just be professional, just be honest, and honestly be prepared, because I had one phone interview before and I was not prepared for it and it didn't go well, so I didn't get the job. But so this one went well, and then they said that they would like to schedule me for an in-person interview, and that is scheduled about a week after the phone interview. So a week later you go in for the in-person interview, and it's actually a group interview. I was in a group with 2 other girls, and it is actually a group interview by a manager at Nordstrom, where they'll ask you, you know, more in-depth questions like, you know, tell me a little bit about yourself. And so you go around telling them a little bit about yourself. And then I remember a question they asked me was, when has there ever been a time where you didn't meet your goals, and how do you go about fixing it? And then again, they ask about customer service and how do you feel about customer service and what's a good example of customer service. They ask if you've ever had a bad experience with a customer. Have you ever worked on commission sales, and how do you feel about it? Do you like it or do you not like it? Just basically past experience. At this point, they want to know if you're a good match for Nordstrom, because Nordstrom is all about customer service. They're all about building customer relationships. Basically, in that interview, they want to see how you would be able to interact with the customer, whether the customer is unhappy or whether the customer is happy, or, you know, basically how would you build a relationship with them where you can get a customer to keep coming back to you. A lot of these questions that they ask on the Nordstrom in-person interview you can actually find online. Like, a lot of people have them written down, and that's where I prepared for my interview. The following interviews is where I couldn't find any help, and this is where I kind of got stuck. So after the in-person group interview at the Nordstrom that is planning to hire you, you go home, and then they'll call you back within a week. Let's see, I got a call about 2 days later, but my situation's a little different. So I got a call 2 days later from the manager saying that they actually have an open position at Chanel, and that they feel that I would be a good fit. So they asked if I was interested in applying for that position instead. So immediately I said yes, absolutely. I am absolutely interested in working at Chanel, because I grew up with the brand. I love Chanel. I have loved Chanel all my life. I keep up with everything. Like, I familiarize myself with the product. Like, those CCs, this one, it's been in my life. Like, I've seen it all my life. And I've always been interested in working at Chanel, but I never actually thought I'd have a chance of being hired. But here it is. There's my chance to get hired. So immediately I said, yes, I'm very interested in working for Chanel. So they said, okay, they'll put my name in for the applicant because there is one position open. So about like 2 days later, I get a call from the retail manager of Chanel. Now, this isn't the counter manager. This retail manager actually has nothing to do, like, they're not part of Nordstrom. They work for Chanel. Like, she worked for Chanel. She's in charge of all the retail that goes into the different stores. So all the retail that goes into Nordstrom, Macy's, any counter that sells Chanel, she's in charge of the retail that goes into it. All the products that go into that counter, she's in charge of it. So I got interviewed by the retail manager of Chanel. I'm not gonna mention her name just because I don't know if she works for a certain region or anything, and I don't wanna give her name away. You know, I just wanna respect her privacy. So I got a phone call from the retail manager, and this was actually pretty complicated because she called me in the morning and I missed it. So I called her back and it went to voicemail. I would try to reach her at about like every hour. I don't want to be a pest, but at the same time I wanted to let her know, like, hi, I'm interested. Like, let me call, like, call me back, I'm interested. So yeah, and it was crazy because like I remember it was a Friday and we were playing phone tag all day, and I was so nervous because it was a Friday and I felt like I had to reach her at a certain time because it's Friday. Like, I'm like, oh my god, if I don't talk to her by today, if I wait till Monday, like, the position might go away, and I was just so nervous. Turns out that was actually her mobile phone that she was trying to reach me from. So at about 7 or 8 o'clock, she actually got back to me, and I actually was able to get on the phone with her, and she said that she wanted to schedule an interview, an in-person interview with me for the following Wednesday. So of course, I'm like, yes, I'm absolutely free. Even if I wasn't, I was gonna say I was free. So I met up with her for an interview that following Wednesday, and so by this time, the amount of days between my in-person interview with my interview with the Chanel retail manager was about a week. So Wednesday comes, I meet her for the interview. I bring my updated resume. The questions that she asked me were a little different, quite underprepared. I actually thought that the interview had gone very poorly, but you know what? Obviously it didn't, because I got the job. If you happen to be watching this and you know who I am and you remember who I am, thank you for giving me the big break, because I really needed it. So, so the first thing she did was, standard, tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do? And so I tell her about myself. I recently graduated, and, I freelance, I do all this, and I tutor on the side. So, a good people person. I'm good at building relationships, and I'm good with making people feel comfortable with me. Like, I'm very sociable, and I'm very approachable. So I said that, and then, just standard, how do you feel about Chanel? What is it that you like about Chanel? I told her that I loved the level of exclusivity, and Chanel will never cease to bring out that gasp in people. Like, every time someone gets a gift that says Chanel, it's always like, oh my God, you got me Chanel. Like, it's just, that breathtaking factor never goes away, and it's something that I absolutely love about Chanel. Chanel will never cease to be special, essentially, is what I was trying to say. And she loved that I grew up with Chanel, and she loved my passion for it. There was a question that she asked me that I was absolutely stumped, because I had never been in this situation before. The thing that she did ask me was how I plan to deal with a coworker at the same counter who felt like they had the seniority and they felt like they had the upper hand. Like, how would I feel about them trying to stomp me out of the way? And my response to that was that you just take everything with a grain of salt, because it definitely does happen. It happens at every workplace, where the new person just kind of becomes like the little bitch for a second because they don't know what's going on. She basically wants to know how I would deal with certain coworkers feeling territorial because they're like, oh, these are my customers, like, you can't help them, which I totally understand. So I told her, I'm like, you know what, I totally understand. They worked hard for those customers. They worked hard to build that relationship with the customer. So it's, I don't have the right to come in and just swoop them and take the sale. I totally get that. So I told her that I would use every adversity that I face as a learning experience to try to build my own customer relationships. And she seemed to like that response. One thing that I did get stumped on was when she asked how I would deal with handling 3 different events at the same time, because apparently Chanel has a lot of makeup events, and how I would deal with how I would deal with a Chanel event in conjunction to a Nordstrom event, in conjunction to a Nordstrom credit card event. So I had never been in a situation like that, so I gave her like the crappiest answer. Like, I have no idea. Like, now that I think back at it, like, I should have just been honest and told her that I do not have experience with it, and that I'm not sure what I would do at this point, but I am a very fast learner, and that I'm sure that I would be able to juggle all 3 options if necessary. Like, I feel like that's what I should have said, but I didn't. So, but I mean, you just have to give honest answers, and you just have to be yourself. If you don't get hired, it's not because you weren't good enough. They just didn't feel like you were a good fit. Maybe you weren't fit for Chanel, but maybe you're really good for Bobbi Brown, So don't ever be disheartened if you don't get hired. Another thing she asked me was how I felt about adversity amongst coworkers. Like, if a coworker was just being very unfair. She asked me how I would approach a situation, and I told her that I would approach it with kindness, basically, because I told her that you can say anything to anybody as long as it comes from a place of love. Because as soon as you say it in a very aggressive manner, people's automatic reaction is to be defensive. But if you approach them in a kind and loving way, and just to say it very nicely, and just to explain the situation and say, hey, like, I don't think that's very fair. Like, do you think we could do it this way instead? If you approach it in a very kind manner and in a very respectful manner, things will always be solved better that way. Now, if the situation gets out of hand, and I explained to her that I feel like if the situation is no longer in my control, that is when I will elevate it to a manager. But if I can solve it by myself, I will. A good chunk of the interview portion with the retail manager was basically her telling me all about Chanel, and how Chanel owns their own labs, and just like, there's so much room for growth in Chanel, and it's such a great company to work for. So by the end of it, I was so excited to work for them, and I realized that like my heart would break so much more if I didn't get the job, because I was like, oh my god, it sounds like such a good company to work for. Like, I really hope I get it. And so that interview lasted for about like half an hour to 45 minutes. She said that she had one more candidate besides me to interview. So that got me nervous, but she did say that her experience, and that she was actually looking for somebody kind of green and just kind of young, and someone very fresh, which also brings me back to the point that I said earlier, that sometimes you might not get the job, not because you weren't good enough or, you know, you aren't pretty or whatever. It's just maybe you weren't what they were looking for at the time. So just keep that in mind. Like, don't be offended. So after that interview ended, I think it was about 3 days before my counter manager got back to me. It was actually a Saturday, and it was so out of the blue. Like, I remember I was at my cousin's house, and all of a sudden I got a phone call, and I recognized that it was from the area code. It was from the area that the Nordstrom I was interviewing for was from. So I ran upstairs and I like answered the phone, and she was like, "Hi, this is like blah blah blah." I'm not gonna give you her name either, but like she was like, "Hi, I'm the counter manager at Chanel. Like, oh, can I speak to Andrea?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is her," like trying to keep my cool. And she said that the retail manager actually passed on to her that they would like to move on with me for a final interview, and that she wanted to meet up with me later that week on a Wednesday, I believe. Yes, it was a Wednesday. And I said, absolutely, like, I am very, very free. I'm absolutely free to come in to interview. And she said, great. So I went in that Wednesday a little more prepared. This interview was actually a lot shorter, and it was a lot more brief. She basically asked me the same things that the retail manager asked me, like a little bit about myself, how I am with customers, how I deal with bad customers, or how I deal with adversity within my counter, how I deal with certain things, and why do I like Chanel, like how do I know about Chanel, like what is it about Chanel, why do I want to work for Chanel. It was just stuff like that. It was very brief, and it lasted maybe about 20 to 30 minutes. She asked me a very few questions. Oh, another thing they asked me if I was bilingual, and I said yes. I felt like that helped me because the area that I work in, there's a lot of Asians, and I felt like the fact that I was bilingual and that I do speak Vietnamese and a little bit of Cantonese, and that kind of helped me because I feel like they needed somebody who was bilingual. So that helped me too. But I feel like being bilingual helps in general. So that interview was pretty brief, and then afterwards I just went home. A couple days I got a call, not from the counter manager, but from the beauty manager, offering me the position. She went over my pay and the commission rate and what day I'll be starting, and I accepted, and I started within the week, and I went to training, and that was that. Like I said, this interview process was actually really lengthy. Like, I interviewed for this position for a month. Like, it was like all of my interviews were spaced a week apart, and it was actually a little nerve-wracking because I do not like to be held stagnant like that. Like, I feel like I had to know like immediately, like let me know by the end of the day whether or not I did good on the interview, because I can't go to bed like wondering like that. Like, it gives me anxiety. But you know, it all worked out for the end. Chanel is such a great company to work for. I love them. I absolutely love the girls that I work for. I love just how I love the exclusivity that comes with Chanel, and that's what I really addressed. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that if you follow what I say and just if you follow step by step what I did, you'll get the job. Like I said, it all depends on what they're looking for at the time. I mean, they could have been looking for someone, you know, middle-aged, and I would not have made the cut because I'm obviously not middle-aged. It really does depend on what they're looking for at the time. Honestly, just be yourself, and if you show that you are absolutely passionate about Chanel and that you absolutely love Chanel, I mean, your personality is going to show through. That if you work at Nordstrom, because if you're working at a Chanel at Nordstrom, they want to make sure that you are like great with customers. If you absolutely hate working with people and customers, like, this job is definitely not for you, because your paycheck is dependent on how you interact with customers and how you build a customer relationship so that they can keep coming back and shopping with you. Because, I mean, it is commission based. So you do have to build that customer relationship so that they come back and that they shop with you so that you get that commission. You know what I'm saying? I think I pretty much covered everything. Basically, if you take anything away from this video, it's be yourself, don't be discouraged, and just show true passion in Chanel, because just know what Chanel's all about. It helps to do a little bit of history and a little bit of research, see what they're all about. Like, for example, I didn't know that Chanel owned all of their labs. Like, they don't share labs with anybody. Like, a lot of brands you don't realize are owned by Estee Lauder. Chanel is not one of them. They're actually independent. Like, all the stuff that they put into their skincare is actually they own it, so nobody else can use the same ingredients. So, you know, just like little things like that. If you pull out like a fun fact about Chanel during your interview process, I think it would definitely be a bonus, because it's kind of hard to interview for something that you have no idea what it is about. So I think I covered just about everything. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to just ask me down below. I feel like I just kind of zoomed through it because I had been planning to do this video for a really long time, and so much time has passed by that I totally forgot like the specific questions that they asked me. I just remember the big questions like how you feel about Chanel, why you're interested in working there, and just little questions here and there. I just remember that customer relationship is key, and if you don't have that, you have nothing. So if you're interested in working for Chanel at Nordstrom, I hope this helps you. Or if you're interested in working at Nordstrom at all, I hope, you know, you guys found some help with this. I'm gonna try to find the interview questions that I found online down below, just in case you were wondering. Or just in case you have an interview at Nordstrom or anywhere that you want to prepare for. I'm actually really good with interviews. If you have any questions in general, just let me know. Also, when I went for my interviews, I wore biz cash all around. I wore either all black or I wore a blazer, dress pants, and a blouse. The first group interview that I went to, there was a girl that was wearing a crop top and ripped jeans. Yes, I understand that you were applying for MAC, but this is an interview, and at the end of the day, you do have to dress biz cash. Always err on the side of caution, so dress biz cash just to make sure, because you do want to dress professionally. In terms of makeup, I didn't do anything too dramatic. Something like this would be fine. I actually would probably recommend a nude lip as opposed to something this dark, but something neutral, nothing too crazy. If you want to do false lashes, do something more subtle, nothing crazy, nothing with glitter, like just dress professionally. Present yourself in a very professional manner, basically. I mean, they have no idea who you are, so your first impression is the most important impression that you have to make. Well, with that being said, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask. If I missed anything, I'm so sorry. I feel like I was so rambly and so unorganized in this video. But I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye.